there, it's Marley. Welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing some book recommendations for my favorite TV characters. So this is a little idea I had because I love to read books, but I also really love to watch TV shows as well. So I thought it would be fun if I curated some book recommendations for some of my favorite, most iconic TV characters. So let's just get right into it and start out with The Vampire Diaries. This is one of my favorite shows of all time. One of my favorite characters of this show is, of course, Damon Salvatore. He is obviously one of the main characters. He is the older, badder brother in this love triangle. Very funny, a very dark, kind of selfish person, but over the course of the show he goes through a lot of growth. He does learn to become more of a selfless person. He'll do whatever it takes for his loved ones. Just an overall icon. So one of the books I wanted to recommend for him is the Full Metal Alchemist manga series, actually, that I'm currently reading. I have not finished this by any means, but I felt like Damon would like this, mainly because it has two of his favorite things. I would say he's like fighting and like violence, but then also like a brotherly love. This is about two brothers who are alchemists. They're kind of having different adventures throughout the few volumes that I have read, getting into different fights, trying to protect the world, but then also they have this brotherly love throughout. So for Damon, I think he would really be entertained by this. He also would probably enjoy reading a manga because they're quicker to get through. I feel like he has a lot going on. Maybe he doesn't want to sit around reading for long amounts of time. So I feel like a manga would be good for him. And the content of this one would be a good fit because he loves action and he loves his brother Stefan. One of my other favorite characters from Vampire Diaries, I guess, is a bit of a controversial opinion, but I do love Elena as well for the most part. And a book I would recommend to her is No Exit by Taylor Adams. Elena is like a classic survivor. She always is in these life or death situations because she's a doppelganger where vampires are trying to kill her or come after her or her loved ones. So she definitely is a fighter. And so I think she would really like this book, No Exit, because this is literally about a character trying to survive throughout the entire book. I think Elena would find it very relatable. The main character in this book gets stranded during a blizzard and ends up seeing this kid has been abducted and is in one of the vans at this rest stop that she's at. So she is trying to save herself and then also save this kid that is trapped in one of the vans and just try to get away from whoever kidnapped this child. I think Elena would really relate to this, and it would also be a good distraction from her own craziness in her life. For Dawson's Creek, we have Joey Potter. She is one of the main characters. She is very studious. I think she becomes a writer as her career, but yeah, she's very focused on school. She, of course, also gets into a love triangle similar to Elena. She's a bit of a tomboy, that kind of thing. I thought I would recommend her Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. As I said, she is into, I'm pretty sure she's into like writing and English is what she pursues in school. So I think she would be interested in reading about authors and kind of reading about a book that's really critiquing the publishing industry. Yellowface is, of course, about a white author who steals her friend's manuscript, and her friend is an Asian American woman. She takes the story for her own and acts like she was the one that wrote it. Has obviously a very like morally gray, kind of bad main character, but it makes a lot of different commentary on Twitter and just the writing community and publishing, as I already said. So I feel like she would take a lot from this, and she would also probably live for the drama as well. At the end of the day, she does star on a teen soap, a teen drama, so I think she would like the drama too. Next up, we have How I Met Your Mother, and I have a recommendation for Robin. I absolutely love Robin. I mean, I love all of the main characters in How I Met Your Mother's friend group, but Robin really is just hilarious to me. Our Canadian pop icon. But the book I recommend for her, again, because I think she'd find it kind of relatable, is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Robin also gets herself into a love triangle in this show and finds herself having a lot of different love stories throughout her life, mainly between obviously Barney and Ted, and she's kind of caught between the two. In One True Loves, it's a similar premise where you have a girl caught between her past love and her like new future one. She had a husband who she was in love with. They had a great marriage, and then her husband disappeared. She thought he was dead, and that time she moved on and found a new a new true love, a new fiance, and then years later she finds out her husband actually is still alive and now she has to choose. And so I feel like Robin, again, could find this relatable, could maybe help her figure out her own mess of a love life, and again, maybe distract her from her own issues going on. The next TV show is Glee, and one of my absolute faves is of course Santana. She is iconic, she is hilarious. She's part of the cheerleading squad who ends up joining the Glee club. She's, you know, close with Brittany and ends up having a sapphic love story with her and coming out as gay. So I think a book she would really appreciate would be I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. This is a young adult sapphic romance novel. This is about a main character, Chloe, in high school, and she is on track to become the valedictorian, but her only competition is this girl named Shara Wheeler. They have this kind of rivalry, enemies to lovers thing going on, and then one day Shara kisses her and then disappears, and so she's trying to figure out like where Shara went along with some other kids at school. It talks a lot about obviously the LGBT community, what it's like being queer, especially in an environment that is not welcoming. I think the town and like the school is very religious in this book, if I remember it correctly, but I think just having this sapphic representation would be really great for Santana to see, especially in a young adult setting. I think it would help her feel seen, and she kind of has like a prickly personality, Santana, so I think she would kind of like the enemies to lovers vibe that this gives as well. So that is my recommendation for her. We have a random one came up with this a few weeks ago, and now I'm looking at these at my list and I'm like, okay, this is kind of funny. It's for Merlin from the show Merlin. Absolutely love this show, and the title character Merlin is amazing. He is so selfless and does whatever he needs to do to protect Arthur. He's very humble and brave and just such a good character, so funny. Just such a kind, amazing character. A book to recommend him is gonna be The Bodyguard. This is one of my favorite romance books, but I feel like Merlin could appreciate it and relate to it again, because Merlin, as I said, his whole thing is protecting Arthur. He knows what it's like to be kind of like a bodyguard figure, always looking out for someone else as kind of his duty. Same with our main character in this book. She is a bodyguard as her trade, and she ends up having to look out for this, I think he was a movie star or musician, I always forget, but this famous guy. She ends up having to look after him for her next job, and they end up having to fake date in order to trick his family because he doesn't want his family to know that he needs a bodyguard. So there's fake dating. It's a really, really cute relationship between the two. They are falling in love, but it's kind of forbidden because she's supposed to be his bodyguard. And I just feel like it's a pretty relatable situation for Merlin, obviously having to pretend for Arthur's benefit and stuff like that, but I think he would have fun with this book. And I recommend this book to everyone else as well. Okay, next up, Teen Wolf is another show I really enjoyed during my youth, and Derek Hale is one of my favorite characters in that. He's very grumpy again. He's had a rough go of things. His whole family was like murdered in a fire. He's constantly kind of posed as like the villain or like outcast. Scott, our main character in the show, is always kind of fighting against him when Derek is trying to help. Like he has a rough go of things for sure, but he does, you know, find his way. He does find his pack by the end. Well, let's not talk about the actual end of the movie. Don't watch the movie. Don't watch the movie. Anyways, I would recommend him the book Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. I think that's very accurate for him, as he comes from a family of werewolves who all, I mean, not all of them, as I said, a lot of them do die and we never get to see them, but we do see some of his family members and they're all kind of evil. They kind of fits with the title of like Everyone in My Family's Killed Someone. Like he comes from a family of villains, or like they have some darker stuff going on. So I think he would really relate to this. He's also very involved in like the mysteries of the town of Beacon Hills. He's very involved in everything. And in this book, we have our main character who is trying to solve a murder mystery. It's a very fun book, making jokes around all of the tropes that you often see in murder mysteries. But yeah, throughout the book, we're just learning about this guy's family and why everyone in his family has killed someone, like how did that happen. And then we have this driving sort of murder mystery that's happening in present day. And this was a really, really fun book, probably one of my favorite murder mysteries I've read, so I recommend it for Derek. Maybe it can lighten up his life a little bit, as he does have a pretty dark life. Then I actually came up with a few for Game of Thrones characters. Kind of, I guess these would be my top 3 Game of Thrones characters. We have Tyrion. He obviously is iconic, super funny. He's kind of the outcast in his family. He kind of stands out from the rest of his family. They make fun of him, stuff like that. But then he actually is like really great politically. Probably is the most successful of anyone in his family, ironically. And I think he would like The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, because so much of this book is surrounding like political intrigue and scheming, and so I think he would really be entertained by this. We have our main character Jude, who is like one of the only humans in this fairy realm, and so she's always trying to find ways to survive, and she ends up working for, I think, one of the princes or the kings in this fairy realm, spying for him, doing undercover missions. There's also, of course, the romance element where she falls in love with one of the other princes and has a love to hate romance, but a lot of it is about her just kind of navigating the political landscape, I guess, in this fairy world with the different kings and queens and realms and all of that. So I think it'd be very relatable for Tyrion, and he would enjoy the scheming elements. Then for Arya, another great character, she is one of the younger Stark siblings. She ends up going on her own journey, learning to fight and learning to survive on her own, wanting to get revenge as well for everything that people have done to her, the family members that people have killed in her family. So I thought a good book for her would be The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is a Carrie retelling, and so you can imagine like it deals with a main character who is bullied, who is kind of isolated and abused by her parent, and then her kind of rising up as she realizes she has these powers. She takes revenge, and she takes some bloody revenge. And so I think Arya would feel really empowered reading about this character. Again, as I've said with all the other recs, I think she would find this very relatable. I think she would get a lot from this story. Now, kind of an obvious one, Daenerys, Khaleesi, our dragon queen. I'm gonna recommend Fourth Wing because I have not read too many dragon stories that also have romance, but her storyline in Game of Thrones obviously has a lot to do with dragons and romance. She starts out in a precarious position. She's being forced to do things against her will. Things are not looking good for her. And then she gets her dragons. She gets power. She becomes empowered, and she becomes a great queen. And we don't need to talk about her ending. But anyways, she was one of my favorites throughout the series until things went awry. So I obviously think she would like Fourth Wing. This is a romantasy book about a girl who ends up training to be a dragon rider. So I think Daenerys would really appreciate that. She would feel seen. I think she would love the little dragon characters in this. There's some of the best parts of this book are the little dragons that we get to know. There's a lot of action and stuff like that too. So this has to be my book recommendation for Dany. Okay, I'll just do a couple more. For those of you who have seen Orphan Black, it's a great show, and one of my faves from that show was Alison. So this show is about clones, and she was one of our clones, one of our main characters, and she was like the soccer mom clone. She had a very traditional life, marriage, kids. So what I would recommend to her is The Whispers by Ashley Audrain. This is very much about motherhood. It's about, I think it follows 4 different women's perspectives that we get and kind of their different issues that they have going on in this neighborhood surrounding motherhood. A lot of the time it's a lot of darker issues. This book's kind of considered a thriller or like a darker literary book. So I think Alison would be able to relate to this. I think it would be a great book for her to talk about, you know, in her book club with the other moms in the neighborhood. I think she would really enjoy this one. So that's my rec for Alison. And then the final one I thought I would mention is Mindy from the Mindy Project, another icon. She is just hilarious. Mindy is a doctor, so she's very smart and everything, but she also has a very like silly, girly personality. She loves rom-coms, hopeless romantic, and throughout the whole show she is desperately, you know, trying to find love and trying to find happiness. And so I wanted to recommend her a rom-com book that I enjoyed kind of recently, and that is The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. This main character reminded me of Mindy a lot. Her name is Fizzy, and she is a romance author, and similar to Mindy, she's a very like outgoing, unique woman that a lot of people are drawn to. She's very funny, and I just love loved her personality as well, similar to Mindy, and she's a hopeless romantic, and in this book she finds love. She has her love story. She ends up getting brought on this dating show, this dating reality show, and falling for the producer of that show. I don't always love Christina Lauren's books. They're very hit or miss, but this is one that definitely stood out to me as one that I really liked, and I think Mindy and anyone with similar interests as Mindy would enjoy this book. So those are some of my book recommendations for some of my favorite TV characters. Let me know what you thought of this video idea down below, and let me know if you have any other alternate book recommendations for any of these characters that I mentioned. All right, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, of course, and maybe I'll do a part 2 to this video. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.